I want to say I knew something was wrong the second the pod cycled open, but the truth is simpler and stupider than that. I just thought I'd overslept. Emergency stasis doesn't ease you awake like the long-haul pods do, with warm air and a recorded voice counting off the years. It just stops. 1 second I'm bracing against a hull breach on the relay hauler Kareen's Reach, and the next, I'm coughing frost out of my lungs on a floor I don't recognize, under lights too clean, in a station that smells wrong. 31 years wrong, as it turned out. The medic who found me looked at my ident chip like it was a joke somebody had left running too long, kept saying my name back to me. Adric Sene. Adric Sene. The way you repeat a word until it stops meaning anything. Kessa Vault had listed me dead in year 2 of the search. There'd been a memorial marker in the lower ring for 11 years before they repurposed the space for storage. I asked about the pens before I asked about anything else. That got me a strange look too. Commandant Rael Dern saw me on my 3rd day, once medical cleared me to walk unescorted. He didn't stand when I came in. He had my old file open on his desk slate, and read from it like a man reading someone else's obituary for his own entertainment. 31 years, he said. You understand that everyone who signed your commendations is retired or dead. You understand that the Pride classification protocols you operated under were phased out. You understand that you are, functionally, a historical artifact standing in my station. I told him I understood the words. I didn't tell him I understood anything else, because I didn't, not yet. The Thessari Pride is being culled, he said, like a scheduling note. 6 adults, unmanageable, aggressive with new handlers, a liability on a relay this size. We're bringing in engineered stock from Praxis Combine next quarter. Tractable, VAT raised, no history to unlearn. The old pens will be cleared by week's end. Yura, I said. It came out before I decided to say it. Dern glanced up. The matriarch, still alive, old and mean, and the reason nobody's set foot in that den without a stun lance in 2 years. He closed the file. See the station physician about a work assignment somewhere useful. The pens are not useful anymore. I didn't argue with him. I've never been much good at arguing. I went to the pens instead, the way I would have gone 31 years ago, because some part of me hadn't caught up to the idea that 31 years had happened at all. The den hadn't changed as much as I had. Same reinforced grating, same rust bleeding down the same wall, same low amber light the Thessari's eyes don't need much of. What had changed was the size of what was living in it. I remembered Yura small enough to hold against my chest, a starving orphan cub some cargo crew had found half dead in a crate, and dumped on me because nobody else wanted the trouble. I'd fed her from a rigged bottle, kept her warm under my coat on the cold shifts, sat with her at night when she cried in her sleep. She'd grown into the Pride's matriarch before I ever went under. I hadn't expected to see her old. She was old, gray through the amber coat, thin in the shoulders, one ear notched from some fight I'd never hear the story of. She lay against the far wall when I came to the grating, and for a long moment she didn't move, and I thought, she doesn't know me. 31 years. Why would she? Then I said the only 2 words I ever used with her, the same flat tone I'd used before the accident, took me out of her life, without either of us agreeing to it. Easy, girl. Her head came up, her ears went forward, and she was on her feet, and across that den, faster than an animal her age had any business moving, pressing her skull against the grating, hard enough to rattle it, making a sound low in her chest that wasn't a snarl at all. I put my hand flat against the mesh, and she pushed into it like she was trying to get 31 years of not touching done in a single breath. I was still crying when the second one came out of the shadow behind her. I didn't know this one, couldn't have. She was enormous, bigger than Yura, bigger than any Thessari I'd handled. Dark rosettes over amber gone almost black with age of her own, 25 or 26 years by the look of her, which meant she was born after I went under, which meant she had never, in her life, laid eyes on me. She stopped a few feet behind her mother, watched me the way a predator watches something it hasn't decided about yet. Then she lowered her head, slow, deliberate, the exact motion her mother had just made, not learned in that instant, not copied, but already in her, the way a thing is in your blood before anyone teaches it to you. She came forward and put her skull against the mesh beside Yura's, and the 2 of them stayed there, and I understood something I hadn't let myself understand yet. It was never about me being remembered. Yura would have known me if I'd been gone 3 years or 300, but her daughter had no memory of me to draw on. Whatever Yura carried in her that made her choose gentleness in a place that gave her every reason not to, she'd passed it down the same way she'd passed down her eyes, her build, her name. And that daughter looked at a stranger who was calm where everyone else came armed, and something old and correct in her simply agreed with her mother. That's when I heard boots in the corridor. 6 of them, stun lances up, a junior officer reading off a manifest number like a supply order. Dern hadn't wasted any time. "Step away from the enclosure," the officer said to me, not unkindly, just procedurally. "This pride is scheduled for decommission per commandant's order, effective this shift." I didn't step away. I don't know that I decided not to. My legs just didn't do it. What happened next didn't take long, and none of it needed teeth. Yura came around the side of the den toward the access gate, half-cycled from the last feeding. I should have worried about that. I didn't, because she wasn't coming through it to hunt anyone. She came through, put herself between the squad and me, sat, and did not move. Her daughter came through next. She did not sit. She stood full height, eye level with the tallest man in that squad, and she did not snarl and she did not lunge. She simply looked at them the way she'd looked at me before she decided about me, except this time she'd already decided, and what she'd decided was that these men, lances raised at the keeper her mother had chosen, were the thing that needed managing. The other 4 adults came out behind her, one after another, and settled into a loose half-ring around me and Yura, not attacking, not needing to. 6 Thasari, and a squad who'd walked in to decommission a liability, and walked into something no manifest had a number for. The junior officer's voice cracked on the second try. "Sir, someone needs to call this in." Dern came in person 12 minutes later, already talking before he'd seen the pens, already saying words like insubordination and destroy on sight, right up until he rounded the last bend and saw 6 apex predators, arranged calm and immovable around the 58-year-old man he'd dismissed 3 days earlier as a historical artifact. He stopped talking. He stood there in front of the men he commanded, who'd repeat whatever they'd just seen to every mess hall on the station by evening shift, and he had nothing, no order that made sense to give, no threat that didn't look, in that light, like a man threatening a pride that would rather die standing than let anyone touch its keeper. "Stand down," he finally said, to nobody in particular, which is a thing men say when they need the room to stop looking at them. The cull order was rescinded before the shift ended. I don't know what Dern told his superiors. An oversight, a miscalculation, something bloodless enough to survive in a report. It doesn't matter. Every man in that corridor saw what they saw, and reports don't unwrite memory. Yura died 8 years later, old even for a Thasari, her head in my lap the way I once held her in the crook of my arm. Syl is matriarch now. She's raised 3 litters since, and I've watched every cub come up to me on unsteady legs the same way she once did. Not taught to, just born already agreeing with something their mother decided before they existed. The younger handlers have a name for it now, something they started saying after that day in the corridor, half in awe and half like they still don't believe it happened. They call it the old call held. I never coined the phrase. I just said 2 words to an animal I loved, 31 years too late to have any right to, and she answered anyway, and her daughter answered too, for no reason a manifest would ever record. I've been asked whether I regret the 31 years I lost. I tell them the truth. I didn't lose anything that mattered. It was still there when I woke up. It was always going to be there. That's just what a bond is, when it was never built on a schedule to begin with.